All right, today we're going on a treasure hunt, but maybe not the kind you're thinking of. We're going to dig deep into the really complex world of the American anti-government movement. And our goal? To find a secret that's been hiding in plain sight. A treasure that honestly explains so much about where we are today. Okay, let's get into it.
So first things first, we've got to wrap our heads around the central metaphor from our source material. See, the anti-government movement, it isn't some single organization with a CEO and a headquarters. It's much more organic than that. Think of it as soil. It's this incredibly fertile ground of American distrust, this fierce individualism, and this deep suspicion of centralized power. And from this soil, all sorts of different groups have sprouted up over the years.
And buried deep within the soil is what our source calls a lost treasure. Now, it's not gold, it's not jewels, it's not some secret document. It's an idea, a really powerful conviction that drives this entire ecosystem. So the big question for our explainer today is, what exactly is this treasure? Let's go find out. To find the treasure, we first have to understand the soil it's buried in. And to do that, we need to go way back to the very beginnings of the American identity and its very, very unique relationship with authority. This really highlights a key difference. In a lot of European countries, the government has historically been seen as the main problem solver. But America was literally founded in a revolution against a distant, powerful government. This created this deep-seated go-it-alone spirit, this idea that the best thing the government can do is just keep its nose out of your business. This isn't some recent thing. It is baked into the country's DNA.
So let's grab our shovels, metaphorically speaking. The first clues to this whole treasure hunt are buried deep in American history, right from the very start.
You know, this suspicion of a powerful central government is nothing new. Not at all. We see it in things like Shays' Rebellion back in 1786, or the Whiskey Rebellion just 5 years later. I mean, these were armed uprisings by regular citizens against what they felt were unfair federal taxes. And that feeling just got amplified by life on the frontier, where self-reliance wasn't just some nice ideal, it was literally how you survived. And right here, we unearth our first piece of the treasure, what we'll call the founding template. See, the anti-government movement doesn't see itself as anti-American. It's actually the complete opposite. They believe they are the true patriots, the modern-day heirs of the revolutionaries who fought against an oppressive government. For them, the revolution isn't just some event in a history book. It's a permanent permission slip to resist. And over the next couple of centuries, this pile of grievances just kept getting bigger and bigger. Every generation seemed to add another layer. For some, it was the federal occupation of the South after the Civil War. For others, it was the New Deal and the start of the modern income tax. Then you had federally mandated civil rights laws and environmental protections. To some people, each one was just another piece of evidence of federal overreach. Now, this deep distrust, for a long time it was kind of a fringe idea. But then, in 1981, President Ronald Reagan himself gave it a massive mainstream voice with these famous words. This was huge. It basically validated the idea that the federal government was an adversary, not an ally. And it legitimized a core belief of the entire movement. Okay, so if all that history provided the fuel, the 1990s, that's when someone lit the match. Two specific events poured gasoline on this smoldering fire and really ignited the modern anti-government movement as we know it today. First, up at Ruby Ridge, a standoff between federal agents and the Weaver family ended in absolute tragedy, including the deaths of a 14-year-old boy and his mom. Less than a year later, the whole world was watching as a 51-day siege at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco ended in that horrific fire. Now, for this growing movement, these weren't just tragic mistakes. No, this was proof positive of a tyrannical government that was willing to murder its own citizens. And this leads us right to the next piece of our treasure, martyrdom. You know, every revolutionary movement needs its martyrs, right? It needs those innocent victims to prove just how brutal the enemy is. Well, Ruby Ridge and Waco gave the anti-government movement this incredibly powerful, tragic story of resistance against a violent, oppressive state. These names became a rallying cry. 168. That's the number of people, including 19 children in a daycare, who were killed on April 19, 1995. That date is no coincidence. It was the second anniversary of the Waco fire. The Oklahoma City bombing was a direct result of this radicalization. The bomber, Timothy McVeigh, explicitly said he saw his act of terror as revenge for what happened at Ruby Ridge and Waco.
In his mind, he wasn't a terrorist. He was a hero, firing the first shot in a new American revolution. Now, the bombing forced the movement into the shadows for a while, but it did not disappear, not by a long shot. It just evolved. Today, it's best to think of it not as one single thing, but as this complex, interconnected ecosystem of different groups and different beliefs. So let's break down just a few of the branches here. You've got armed militias who see themselves as modern-day Minutemen, getting ready to fight tyranny. You have sovereign citizens who use these really complex, sometimes bizarre, legal arguments to say they aren't subject to any government laws. Then there are constitutional sheriffs who believe their power at the county level trumps any federal agent. And you have groups of Christian dominionists who believe that Christians are mandated to take control of society's institutions. So what's the one thread that ties them all together? That shared foundational distrust of federal power. In recent years, the movement's gotten a lot more sophisticated. Instead of these big, high-profile national showdowns, the focus has shifted. It's a quieter, much more patient strategy now. Local infiltration. And this new strategy is key to understanding what's happening now. It's a long game. Groups like the Free State Project in New Hampshire actually encourage their members to move to one area, become part of the community, and then run for local offices. Once they get elected to school boards or county commissions, they can work to change laws and defund public institutions from the inside. It's not insurrection anymore, it's infiltration. And you can see this strategy playing out in headlines all across the country right now. The new battlefields are those fiery school board meetings about books and curriculum. It's county sheriffs who publicly say they won't enforce federal gun laws. It's local government meetings where people are trying to create their own official county-run militias. The whole fight is moving from the national stage to the local level. So, after digging through centuries of history, mainstream politics, violent flashpoints, and modern strategy, we've finally arrived. It's time to open the treasure chest. We've unearthed the founding template, we've seen the power of martyrdom and the strategy of infiltration. But what is the ultimate secret? What is the one single idea that powers this entire thing? The treasure is the distrust itself. That's it. It's the stubborn, enduring, uniquely American suspicion that the government isn't what it claims to be. It's this permanent conviction that the official story is never the whole story. This deep-seated distrust, that's the engine that has powered this movement for over 200 years. So why does this matter? Well, because this distrust is a real double-edged sword. As our source material points out, it has fueled violence and it has made governing almost impossible sometimes. But it has also acted as this strange, paradoxical check on authority. It's constantly reminding people in power that they're being watched and that their authority is not absolute. And that leaves us with a final, really tough question, because this distrust, it's not going anywhere. It is a permanent feature of the American landscape. So how is a democracy supposed to function when a big chunk of its citizens believes the system itself is the enemy? That's the challenge this treasure leaves for all of us.